Welcome to Twisted Truths, where betrayal meets brutal payback, and where the most unexpected twists expose what people are really capable of. This story isn't just shocking, it's personal. My name is Jonathan. I'm 33 years old, live in a quiet corner of downtown Denver, and until recently, I thought pain was something you could outgrow. But I've come to learn that some wounds don't fade. They hide deep. And when the time is right, they strike like lightning from a clear sky. Growing up, I was always the responsible one. My parents said it like a compliment, but it felt like a cage. I was the older brother, the fixer, the one who didn't ask for much. Then there was Caleb, 3 years younger than me, blue-eyed, golden-haired, charming as hell and loved beyond measure. Everything I did growing up was in Caleb's shadow. When I made the honor roll, my parents were busy helping Caleb prepare for his third-grade talent show. When I landed a full scholarship for computer science, they were too excited about Caleb's spring break networking trip to Cancun. That one still stings. I never resented Caleb. Not really. He didn't ask to be the golden child. But I did resent the way my parents bent over backward for him while expecting me to just figure things out on my own. And for most of my life, I did. I put myself through college while Caleb's tuition was paid in full. I worked double shifts coding freelance projects while he found himself through failed startups and failed relationships. And every time his world collapsed, another breakup, another lost job, it was Jonathan who they called. To help. To fix. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for what happened last year. It was an October evening, the kind where the Denver sky dims just a little too fast, the kind that makes the city lights feel lonelier than usual. I'd stayed late at work fixing a bug in a software deployment and was driving home, bleary-eyed and exhausted. The crash came out of nowhere. A truck swerved into my lane on I-25. My car spun out, slammed into the guardrail, and then nothing. I woke up in a sterile hospital room, my head wrapped, my leg in a cast, tubes in my arms. It hurt to breathe. The nurse said I was lucky to be alive. A mild traumatic brain injury. A broken femur. Deep bruising along my chest. But the real pain hadn't started yet. The first thing I asked wasn't about my injuries. It was, has anyone come to see me? The nurse looked down. No, she said gently. But maybe they're on their way. 3 days passed. No one came. No call. No message. So I picked up my phone and called my mother. When she answered, her voice was calm, almost cheerful. Jonathan. Are you okay? I heard something happened. I was in a car accident, I said. I'm in the ICU. I've got a broken leg and a head injury. Mom, can you come? She paused. I could hear Caleb laughing in the background. Then she said the words that rewrote my entire life. I wish we could, sweetheart. But Caleb really needs us right now. He's going through a rough breakup with Chelsea. You know how emotional he gets. I couldn't breathe. I'm in the ICU, Mom, I said slowly. I nearly died. She sighed. You're strong, Jonathan. You've always been the one who could handle things. Caleb, he's not built like you. He needs support right now. And just like that, I realized, I could be dying and they'd still choose him. That night, I wept into a hospital pillow. The morphine dulled the physical pain, but nothing could numb the heartbreak. I wasn't the son they worried about. I wasn't the one they loved in action, only in memory, in words they'd throw around when convenient. And for the first time in my life, I let myself admit something ugly. They didn't see me. They never had. I spent 7 days in that hospital bed alone. 7 days of tasteless food, sterile air, and the same flickering light overhead. I counted every tick of the clock. Every beep of the monitors. Every hour that passed without my family. No flowers. No visits. No messages beyond a generic text from my father, "Hope you're healing well. Let us know if you need anything." Need anything? I needed a mother who would drop everything to hold her son's hand when he couldn't stand on his own. I needed a father who wouldn't delegate empathy to a text message. I needed to matter. Instead, I got silence. The nurses became my only lifeline. One in particular, her name was Grace, had this warmth about her. She'd adjust my fluff the pillows, and talk to me like I was a human being, not a burden. One day, she even snuck in a mini chocolate bar, saying, "You looked like you needed this more than applesauce." I laughed for the first time in days. But late at night, the laughter disappeared. All that was left was this suffocating emptiness, this ache in my chest that even morphine couldn't touch. I'd stare at the ceiling for hours, trying to understand what I'd done to deserve being left behind. I went back, memory by memory. Birthday parties skipped. Science fair wins ignored. Scholarships brushed aside. Every time Caleb cried, the world stopped. Every time I succeeded, the world barely blinked. And now, even when I was broken, literally, physically broken, they still chose him. I stopped calling. Stopped texting. If they wanted to show up, they could. But I wouldn't beg. On day 10, a woman from billing walked into my room. "Jonathan Hayes?" she asked. "Yes." She gave me a tight smile. "We've spoken with your insurance company. They'll cover the bulk of your hospital stay, but not the physical therapy sessions. That's out of network." I nodded numbly. "How much are we talking?" She glanced down. "Your estimated balance is $14,600. I swallowed hard. "Right." She waited for me to panic, but I didn't. I was too numb to react. She left a pamphlet for payment plans on the table and walked out. I stared at that number, $14,600, like it was written in blood. It might as well have been. I had savings, of course. I was the responsible one. But that money had been for a down payment on a small condo. A future. A little piece of normal. And now. Gone. Just like that, my future had been mortgaged by a crash I didn't cause and a family that didn't care. It was that night, lying awake under a paper-thin blanket, that I hit my lowest point. I don't mean suicidal. But I do mean broken. Emotionally bankrupt. I'd spent my life being the rock for everyone else, and now I was crumbling with no one to catch me. Even Caleb hadn't called. Not once. I checked his Instagram out of morbid curiosity. There he was, posing with friends in Aspen. Big smiles. Caption, "Out here healing my heart #self-care #new beginnings." Self-care. I closed the app, disgusted. The guy couldn't even be bothered to text a "get well soon." I tried distracting myself with books, podcasts, anything. But the pain, the physical, the emotional, the existential, always crept back. And the worst part? No one knew. To the outside world, I was fine. Resilient. Strong. But inside, I was a man unraveling, stitch by stitch, waiting for someone, anyone, to notice. It happened by accident, like most truths that shatter you do. I was halfway through my second week in the hospital when Grace, the nurse who'd become my unofficial therapist, wheeled me down for a routine CT scan. On the way back, we passed the visitor lounge. I barely glanced through the glass, but then I froze. There was Caleb. Sitting on a couch. Laughing. With my parents. I blinked. He was in the hospital. I turned my head and stared harder, trying to process what I was seeing. He looked fine. No cast, no bruises, no just Caleb. Wearing designer jeans and a smug smile, sipping coffee like he was at brunch. Grace paused. Everything okay? I didn't answer. Instead, I motioned silently for her to stop, watching as my mother leaned over and tucked Caleb's hair behind his ear, cooing softly. They're here. I whispered. Grace looked over, then back at me. Oh. Yeah. I think I've seen them around. They usually check in at the East Wing. My pulse quickened. They're visiting him? I asked. Why? She hesitated. I'm not sure. He's not a patient. I clenched my jaw, swallowing the rising bile. Take me back to my room. Please. The moment I was alone, I unlocked my phone, opened the hospital app, and searched the guest log. It was a feature most people didn't even know existed, but I worked in tech. I knew where to look. Sure enough, my parents had checked into the building 5 times over the past week. But not to visit me. I dug deeper. They'd been visiting the hospital's outpatient therapy department, specifically, the Relationship and Emotional Recovery Center. It hit me like a slap. They were bringing Caleb to therapy. For his breakup. While I lay broken in the ICU, my parents were escorting my adult brother to counseling because he was sad his girlfriend left him. Not just sad, coddled, babied, prioritized. Again. And the final dagger? I opened my email, still listed on a few family-shared accounts out of habit. A receipt sat there. Venmo transfer, $2,500, Caleb's therapy package. Paid by Deborah Hayes. My mother. The same woman who said they couldn't help me with my hospital bills because money is tight right now. My hands trembled as I stared at the screen. I read it again. And again. And again. Hoping the numbers would rearrange, or that maybe I had misread the name. But no. It was clear. They had money. Just not for me. I let the phone slide out of my hand onto the blanket and sat in silence, the beeping of my heart monitor growing faster. It wasn't just that they ignored me. It was that they lied. They chose Caleb, again. I stared out the window at the slate-colored sky and realized something had snapped inside me. Something final. I'd spent my whole life trying to earn their love, believing that maybe, just maybe, I needed to do more, be more, give more. But now. Now I knew the truth. It was never about what I did. It was about who they were. And who I was to them. Invisible. Replaceable. Useful only when they needed something. The discovery didn't just sting, it awakened something. A clarity. A purpose. For the first time, I stopped hoping they'd change. And I started planning. Something in me shifted that day. It wasn't rage. It wasn't bitterness. It was focus. Pure, unshakable focus. I'd lived for decades under the illusion that love must be earned, that sacrifice was the price of acceptance. But when I saw my mother's name on that $2,500 Venmo transfer for Caleb's therapy, while I lay in the ICU, I realized the game had always been rigged. And if it was a game, then I was done playing by their rules. But revenge, real revenge, isn't about shouting or slamming doors. It's about making people see themselves in the mirror they've spent years avoiding. It's about consequences. And I had one card left to play, money. I hadn't told my parents, or Caleb, about my side project. While working my full-time job, I'd been quietly building a SaaS platform, basically a workflow optimization tool for small businesses. Nothing fancy, just clean code and smart integrations. After 2 years of weekend coding marathons and sleepless nights, I'd sold it for $430,000 just 6 months before the accident. The money was sitting quietly in an investment account, untouched. That was going to be my ticket out, my down payment on a home, a fresh start, maybe even the seed of a company of my own one day. But now, that money was going to show them exactly who they'd underestimated. The next week, I was discharged from the hospital. Crutches. A sling. Pain meds in my bag and fire in my gut. My apartment felt cold when I got home. Sterile. Forgotten. Like I'd returned from war and found my life still paused, waiting for someone who no longer existed. But I didn't unpack. Not right away. Instead, I opened my laptop and started writing a letter. Not an email. Not a text. A letter. To my parents, I began. And for the first time in my life, I told the truth. I wrote about my birthdays they forgot, the scholarships they shrugged off, the night I called from the hospital begging for their presence, and how they chose Caleb's heartbreak over my broken bones. I wrote how I'd watched them pay thousands for his therapy, while I bled alone in a hospital bed. How I'd swallowed their neglect for years, thinking I needed to be better, stronger, quieter. And then I wrote this. You've always said I was the responsible one. That I'd understand. You're right. I do understand. I understand that love, to you, was conditional. And I'm done earning it. I printed it. Folded it. Slid it into an envelope with a check, $50,000. That was the exact amount they'd once said they needed to rebuild part of the house. I knew the house meant everything to them. It was their legacy, their pride, their illusion of control. I mailed the letter and check with one line scribbled at the bottom. This is the last time I give without being seen. Then I made a second move. I called Caleb. Hey, he answered casually. What's up? You have 5 minutes, I said, voice ice cold. After that, I'm blocking your number. He chuckled. Bro, seriously? You abandoned me in a hospital, I said, voice cracking for only a second. You watched Mom and Dad forget me. And you said nothing. So here's what's going to happen. Silence. You're going to repay me every dollar you owe, from the loans I covered for your startups, to the rent I floated while you got back on your feet. That's $18,250. I have it itemized. I'm emailing it to you now. Jonathan, come on. No. You're going to pay it back. Or I'll take you to small claims court. And trust me, I've saved every text, every Venmo request, every email. I will show up with receipts. He tried to speak, but I wasn't done. I'm not your fixer anymore, Caleb. I'm not your backup plan. You want to be a man? Start acting like one. And when Mom and Dad ask why, you can tell them the truth. They raised one son to survive, and one to depend. Then I hung up. I sat there, shaking, heart pounding like I'd just run a marathon. It wasn't about the money. It was about accountability. About reclaiming every piece of myself they'd chipped away. I forwarded the receipts. Every dollar. Every timestamp. Then I logged into my investment account and moved the remaining balance into a new trust, under my name only. I updated my will. If I ever passed unexpectedly, the money would go to local scholarships for students from neglectful or emotionally abusive families. Not a dime to my parents. Not a cent to Caleb. By midnight, I felt exhausted, but free. This wasn't just a plan. This was the beginning. They would learn what it meant to finally lose the one person they always took for granted. 3 days after I sent the letter, the silence finally broke. It was a Saturday morning. I was sitting at my small kitchen table, sipping coffee and reviewing some freelance code. The air was quiet, calm, even peaceful. Then my phone rang. MOM. I stared at the screen, the way you might look at a ghost who forgot they were dead. I let it ring. Then again. Then a voicemail. When it stopped, another came in, Dad. I still didn't answer. Not because I was trying to be cruel. But because I wanted them to feel, for just a moment, what I had felt for most of my life. Ignored. Unimportant. Disposable. Eventually, I opened the voicemail. My mother's voice was shaky. Not furious. Not performative. Just, startled. "Jonathan, we got your letter. And the check." I don't even know what to say. I didn't realize we made you feel that way. Please call me. Please. I didn't call. Instead, I waited. Because sometimes, silence says what screaming can't. By Monday, the messages turned frantic. My dad called twice, then texted. "We need to talk. This isn't fair. Don't punish us for a lifetime over one bad moment." But it wasn't one moment. And they knew it. Still, I wasn't done. The next step of my plan was personal, not financial. I posted a photo. It was me, on crutches, standing in front of my apartment with Grace, the nurse, who had become a dear friend. I captioned it. "Some people abandon you when you need them most. Others step in without being asked. Choose your people wisely." The photo spread faster than I expected. Old friends from high school and college began messaging me. "I had no idea," they wrote. "That's disgusting," said another. It wasn't about shaming my family. Not directly. It was about taking back my voice. And letting the world know I wasn't okay with being silent anymore. The ripple reached further than I thought. 2 days later, Caleb called again. This time, I answered. "Yo, you're really airing our laundry on social media now," he snapped. "I'm not airing anything," I replied calmly. "But if you feel exposed, maybe it's because the truth doesn't look so good in daylight. People are messaging me, man. Asking if I abandoned my brother. This is insane." "Then clarify it," I said. "Tell them what happened. Explain how you and Mom and Dad all showed up for your therapy sessions while I was in the ICU. Maybe throw in how they gave you $2,500 for emotional support, but couldn't pay a cent toward my rehab." He fell silent. I continued, "Don't worry, Caleb. I'm not coming after you publicly. I don't need to. You're doing a good job ruining your reputation on your own." Then I hung up. The next day, the money I requested arrived, $18,250. From Caleb's account. No note. No apology. Just a silent transaction. I smiled when I saw it. It wasn't about the money. It was about the balance shifting. For once, they were listening. They were paying attention. Because I'd forced them to. Later that week, I received an email from my mother. Subject, I didn't know. But now I do. It was long. Wordy. Apologetic in tone. But there was one line that caught me. "I think I believed you didn't need us, Jonathan. You were always so strong. So quiet. I didn't realize that your silence was survival." It was the closest thing to an admission I'd ever gotten from her. And yet, I didn't reply. I wasn't ready. Letting go of pain takes more than an apology, it takes time. Change. Proof. But the final domino fell a week later. I received a letter in the mail. Certified. A revised will. It was official. Signed, notarized, and evenly split, 50% to me, 50% to Caleb. No special trusts. No escape clauses. Just equal footing. I stared at it for a long time. This wasn't justice. But it was a start. And I wasn't done yet. I thought the final blow had landed. I thought my silence, my stand, my boundaries had set things right. But life has a wicked way of peeling back one final layer, just when you think the story is over. It happened on a Sunday. I was walking, hobbling, through the park near my apartment, trying to rebuild my strength. Grace had recommended a new therapist who specialized in emotional neglect. I'd had 2 sessions so far, and while it was hard, it was healing. The sun was out. Birds chirped. A mom pushed her toddler on a swing nearby. I remember thinking, maybe it's finally turning around. Then my phone buzzed. A name I hadn't seen in over a year, Aunt Denise. She was my mom's older sister. The blunt one. The black sheep. The one who always showed up late to family holidays and left early after saying something that made everyone uncomfortable. I picked up. "Jonathan," she said. Her voice sounded different, heavy. Careful. "Hey, Aunt Denise. Wow, it's been a while." She hesitated. Then said, "I read your post online. About the hospital. About your folks." I didn't know what to say. Then she said, "It's time you knew something. About Caleb." I froze. "What about him?" She sighed deeply, as if the words had weight that might break her if she said them wrong. "Jonathan, that $2,500 your parents gave Caleb, it wasn't for therapy." "What?" "It was hush money." My skin turned cold. "Hush, for what?" She hesitated. Then the truth came out like a knife. "Your mother was the one driving the truck that hit you." I stopped walking. "What?" "She was rushing to get to Caleb. He'd texted her, panicking about Chelsea threatening to leave him. She got in the car without checking the blind spots, tried to merge fast, and clipped another truck. That truck hit yours." My heart started racing. No. No, that can't be right. They told me it was just some careless driver who fled. She begged Caleb not to tell you. Said you were already hurt enough. And Caleb, well, you know Caleb. He played along. But he made her pay for his silence. That $2,500 was his price. My legs gave out. I sat down on a bench, the world spinning around me. Why are you telling me this?" Aunt Denise's voice cracked. "Because I can't watch them keep lying to you, Jonathan. You deserve to know. I told your mom I'd give her time to come clean. She never did." I stared at the ground, my pulse pounding in my ears. The accident, it hadn't just been random. My mother caused it. And then hid it. And then paid my brother to help keep the truth from me. The betrayal I'd felt before. That was a scratch. This was a wound. I hung up without saying goodbye. Back at home, I pulled up my medical reports, the police report. There had been no charges filed, no investigation beyond the standard. I remembered the nurse telling me that the truck fled the scene. But now it made sense. The truck was a distraction. The chain reaction. But the root? Was her. I paced my apartment in circles for hours. Was this why she'd been so quick to frame the accident as a tragic but clean event? Why they never came to the hospital? Why Caleb hadn't dared to look me in the eye since? They didn't want to face what they'd done. And even worse, what they'd covered up. I opened the text thread with Caleb. I typed. "You knew. Didn't you?" No reply. I waited. Then came 3 dots. Then nothing. I texted again. "You let me sit in that hospital bed thinking a stranger almost killed me, while you cashed a check for your silence." Finally, he replied. "It wasn't like that, John. I didn't mean for it to get that far. She made a mistake. I didn't know what to do." I stared at the screen, the rage boiling beneath my skin. "You knew. And you let me call you family. We're done." I blocked his number. I didn't need more excuses. That night, I sat alone in my living room. The city buzzed outside my window. Neon lights blinked. Cars hummed by. And inside, I finally felt the weight of everything crash over me. The accident had taken my body. But the truth had taken my trust. Still, I knew something else, too. This wasn't the end. Not yet. It took me 3 days to decide what to do. 3 days of silence. No calls. No texts. Just me, the truth, and the ache of knowing that the people I once called family had tried to bury it like I wouldn't feel it bleeding through. My mother had nearly killed me. And my brother sold that silence for $2,500 and a round of therapy he never needed. I kept hearing Aunt Denise's words. You deserve to know. The thing is, once you know the truth, you can never go back. But you do get to choose what happens next. I could press charges. I could expose them publicly. I could destroy them. But instead, I did something worse. I made them face me. I sent one final email. Subject, let's talk. In person. To Mom, Dad, Caleb. Date, Friday. Location, a neutral coffee shop downtown. I picked a place with windows. Somewhere public. Somewhere bright. The kind of place where people don't scream, but truths echo louder than fists. When they walked in, I was already seated. Crutches tucked by my side. Coffee cold. Heart colder. They sat across from me in a triangle of shame. My dad looked exhausted. Caleb wouldn't meet my eyes. And my mother, she looked like someone barely holding herself together with tape and a fake smile. Jonathan, she said softly. No, I interrupted. Not yet. I pulled out a small recorder, placed it on the table, and pressed record. Just so we're clear, this isn't for legal reasons. This is so I never forget what I hear today. She looked stunned. But she didn't stop me. I know the truth, I said. About the accident. About the payout. About the silence. No one said a word. So I turned to Caleb. You want to be the man in this family? Start now. Tell me the truth. His lips trembled. Then he broke. She was rushing, he said. I called her. I was panicking about Chelsea leaving. She was trying to get to me fast. She merged hard. Hit the other guy, and that guy hit you. He glanced at Mom. She freaked out. Begged me not to say anything. Said it would ruin everything. I didn't know what to do, man. I didn't want to hurt you. I stared at him. You did hurt me. And you cashed a check for it. He dropped his gaze. Then I turned to my mother. You watched me suffer. You heard me ask for you. And you still chose Caleb. Her eyes welled up. I was scared, she whispered. Scared you'd hate me. Scared you'd never forgive me. You were right. Silence. I'm not pressing charges, I said flatly. The statute of limitations for hit-and-run injury gives me time. But I'm not interested in court. Relief washed across her face. Don't get comfortable, I added. I'm not pressing charges because I want something worse. They all looked up. I want distance. They flinched. I want peace. My dad leaned forward, his voice shaking. Son, we were wrong. But this? Is this really necessary? Yes, I said. Because this isn't punishment. It's protection. For me. I reached into my bag, pulled out a thick envelope, and slid it across the table. What's this? Mom asked. Instructions, I replied. If you want even the smallest chance of having a relationship with me again, follow them. They opened it. Inside was a printed list, 4 things. 1. Therapy. For both of you. Not for Caleb. For yourselves. Prove to me you're willing to examine the way you raised your children. 2. A formal, notarized letter admitting the full truth of the accident and the cover-up. I don't need it for court. I need it for closure. 3. Caleb returns the remaining $2,500, or donates it to a trauma center of my choosing. I want proof. 4. No contact for 1 year. Let me heal without manipulation. Without guilt. Without pretending we're a happy family. They stared at the list. You can't be serious, Caleb mumbled. I've never been more serious. My mother's hands shook as she folded the list. And if we do all this, she asked. Then maybe, I'll meet you again. As strangers. With a chance to become something better. No hugs. No dramatics. I stood, grabbed my crutches, and walked away. As I left, I heard my father mutter, "He's changed." I stopped, turned back slightly, and said, "No. I've finally started being myself." 1 year later. A lot can change in 365 days. I moved to a new apartment, one with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the mountains. I launched my own consulting firm. Small, lean, but mine. I started dating someone I met at a trauma survivor support group. Her name is Leah. She knows pain. But she also knows joy. Caleb eventually sent proof of the donation. I didn't reply. My parents completed therapy. I know because I got a letter from their counselor, with permission, saying they showed up every week, on time, engaged. Then came a delivery, a sealed envelope. Inside, the notarized letter admitting everything. Word for word. Signed. No excuses. No spin. Just the truth. I haven't replied. Maybe I will one day. But today, I'm finally free. In the end, truth has a way of surfacing, even if it comes twisted through pain and betrayal. As one wise voice once said, sometimes your greatest enemy was once your closest ally. If this story struck a chord with you, let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, share, and spread the word, because justice deserves to be heard.